Hey guys! So we're on chapter 3 of Smoldering Hunger. In chapter 1, we met the emotionally broken and betrayed Sophie Martin, Dr. Sophie Martin. In chapter 2, we met the broody, alone, angsty Darius. So one can only assume that chapter 3 is when they meet for the first time for the audience. Let's dive right into it, shall we? Sophie's back ached as she leaned against the nurse's counter and finished writing notes in the file of her latest patient. Her temples throbbed with a headache that wouldn't diminish, but at least her stomach had stopped growling. Did she eat? She closed the file and handed it to the waiting nurse before grabbing the next chart. She quickly scanned it, noting the many fractures and broken bones the woman had received over the last 5 years. Another one, eh? Asked Claire as she walked past. Sophie leaned an elbow against the counter and rested her forehead into her hand. Yes. Do the asses really believe we don't know they're hitting the women? Claire asked with a snort. All you have to do is look at where the injuries have taken place. Sophie hated these cases. She glanced up at her friend Claire, one of the best nurses at the hospital. She's been admitted because he injured her windpipe. Fuck abusers. You can't save them all, Sophie, Claire said in her soft, kind Scots voice. Unfortunately, Sophie learned that very early on when she was still in medical school in London, and her roommate was beaten to death by her boyfriend. That's terrible. Terrible that happened. I'm understanding the emotional angst now. She took a deep breath and straightened, chart in hand. I know. There's a cute DI outside her room, though. Claire shot her a wink. It's been too long since your last date. It's time to go have some fun, Doc. That's a really strange segue. Sophie smiled and laughed because it was expected, and strangely enough, there was a funny feeling in her stomach, almost like she knew something was coming. 7 years is a long time to be alone. She paused. Had it really been that long? Didn't we go through her, didn't she go through her memories 2 chapters ago? Wouldn't you realize at that point it's been 7 years? She tallied the months, shocked to realize so much time had passed. Her career had flourished during that time. In truth, that was the only way she survived at first. She immersed herself in her work, letting it consume every hour of her day, awake or sleeping. If she couldn't rectify her own life, she could save others. She'd done it so well and for so long it'd become second nature, a habit she hadn't even comprehended she had. The thing was, nothing changed. She worked late-night shifts at the hospital, saw to those patients who couldn't get to her, and always ready to work if someone else wanted time off. If you didn't realize it's been 7 years, why would anything change? Then Darius arrived. From the first moment she saw him, she felt as if her blinders had been removed. He'd calmly handed her the address to tend a friend of Darcy's, and in the next breath told her he wasn't a good man. Okay, I should mention that this book is part of a series. I just kind of grabbed it off the bookshelf. And I am sure you're all very, very heartbroken that we're not going to read the entirety of the series, because I am most certainly heartbroken. But whatever. We're going to take what I give you. That should have sent her straight home without a second thought of him. Instead, she'd taken the address. Not because she'd never turned away someone in need, because she didn't, but because he'd asked for her help. Why couldn't she stop thinking of Darius? Because apparently the sex was awesome. Why couldn't she get him out of her head? It shouldn't matter that his touch made her ache or that he brought her such pleasure. He hadn't come to see her since that night. 14 days, 336 hours. That's a lot of counting of hours. And today, she glanced at her watch. That made it 348 hours, 17 minutes, and 10 seconds. Okay, I'm getting this mental image. You know how a lot of clocks have that timer on it? That as soon as she finished having sex with him, she put it on timer to see when the next time it'll be that he, contacts her. Because there's no fucking reasonable reason why you could know how long it's been since then. Unless you're a math genius and maybe you should be working in a hospital. You should be doing physics or something. Oh shit, what was happening to her? Sophie? She blinked and looked down to find Claire watching her with a worried look in her brown eyes. God, everybody has brown eyes. It's almost like it's the dominant color in the world. Sophie shot her a smile, but Claire cocked her blonde head to the side and put a hand on her hip, telling Sophie she wasn't buying the act for a second. Just lost in thought, Sophie said with a shrug. Claire raised her brows as she regarded Sophie. By that look, I'd say it was a man. A man? Darius was so much more. His presence seemed to make the earth still, waiting for his order. He commanded without a word, dominated with a look from his dark brown gaze. We get it. He's got brown eyes. I wonder if she's going to mention it again. We should count. Man, no man she'd ever met could be so strong and imposing. Well, damn. And sexy. Her mouth went dry thinking of the hard line of his jaw and his lips that were soft and insistent. His eyes could cut coldly, but they could also blaze with a fire so hot that it could melt the sun. I don't know. I know he's a dragon, but I think the sun is probably hotter. She knew what desire looked like reflected in his chocolate-colored depths. Jesus! Really? His eyes softened, turning downright sensual as he held her gaze, challenging her to try and look away. Okay, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just really, really terrible at reading other people. But I don't know if I would know if a guy's eyes would soften up. I mean, I always wondered what, cold eyes look like. I mean, I read it in books. Unless no one ever looks at me coldly. Maybe no one's ever looked at me coldly. I should ask someone to do that, just so I know. All the while, his gorgeous body with rippling muscles brought her higher and higher, giving her ecstasy the likes of which she'd never known, and never known she could have. Wow. What a really stupid fucking line. If she hadn't been sore the next morning when she woke, she might have thought it all a dream. I don't know who he is, but you need to see him again, Claire said, breaking into Sophie's thoughts again. Her smile was wide, a knowing look in her eyes. Sophie swallowed and smoothed a hand over her hair to make sure the thick length was still in place. I don't know what you're talking about. Uh-huh, Claire said with a wink. 2 weeks ago you walked in here with a flush to your skin and a smile on your lips. You wore the look of a woman who had been ridden well. Ever since, you occasionally get that look in your eyes. I'm telling you as a friend, Soph, go see him again. Because if I could find a man who could make me look like that after sex, I'd chain him to my bed. I like Claire. A lot. Why isn't the story about her? This time Sophie's laugh wasn't forced. She knew all too well Claire's issues with men. She was a petite, pretty woman who had a bright smile and an infectious laugh, and yet every guy she was interested in preferred someone else. Worse, it was all the wrong sorts of men who were attracted to Claire. I'm Claire. That's nice. We've been acknowledged. If Sophie thought her years without a date was a long time, Claire wasn't too far behind her. It was why the two of them had become such good friends, because nothing bonds women like the lack of sex. Sophie leaned down and whispered in Claire's ear. The sex was out of this world. He's also out of the picture. She walked away, leaving Claire with her mouth gaping and questions in her eyes. Sophie inwardly laughed because it was a rare thing when she got to shock Claire. Normally, it was Claire who astonished her on a daily basis. Sophie turned the corner and found a man leaning against the wall, staring at her. He was drop-dead gorgeous, because of course, in his dark red sweater and jeans. He wore a small smile about his wide lips as his golden eyes stared at her. His long black hair was pulled back, showing out the hard planes of his face. It unnerved her how he watched her as if she was something to be studied under a microscope. Sophie pulled her gaze away from him and stopped dead in her tracks when she spotted Darius. Her heart thumped in her chest and her stomach fell to her feet. She couldn't decide if she was excited to see him or surprised, especially after just thinking about him. Woman, you think about this man all the time. The strands of his long, dark, blonde hair were windblown, just disheveled enough to make him even sexier. His hair, in addition to the 5 o'clock shadow of a beard, made her blood race. Just his hair and 5 o'clock shadow of a beard? It's oddly specific. And her hands itched to touch him, to run her hands up his chest and over his thick shoulders once more. He watched her with his deep brown eyes. I would like for his eyes to change color. It'd be great if halfway through this book they're his green eyes, the color of meadows and pastures. He watched her with his deep brown eyes without a hint of any emotion. While she was reeling from seeing him after so long and her body instantly beginning to throb with need, he felt nothing. I don't know. Is she psychic? Because that's the only way you could possibly know that he feels nothing. Okay, guys, let's talk about this. Imagine you've had some crazy awesome sex with some stranger on the side of a building and you haven't seen them in 2 weeks, right? Now, either it wasn't that crazy awesome for them to begin with, or, there was a legitimate reason why they haven't seen you. The point is, you don't want to be the first one to break. You don't want to show that you've been the one thinking about them, even though you have, and you present the fuck you, I'm awesome facade because, you don't want to be the one that looks weak. And in fact, I think this is like this in every situation where you like somebody. I don't think it's specific to random stranger sex on the side of a building. Anyway, point is, there's certain ways we react to situations. And the only way to really understand what's going on with someone is you talk to them, you ask them, you find out what's going on. And I think we're guilty of this as people as well because it's not just romance book characters, like all of us. We just don't bother to have that conversation with someone. Now, you could be like me, who's completely shameless, and just lasciviously wink at the dude. Because why the fuck not? I'm awesome, why the fuck didn't you call me? Rant over, back to the book. Sophie knew what kind of disaster lay with Darius. She swore to never go down that path again, as tempting as he was, and good Lord was he tempting. She fortified the walls around her heart. She walked into her patient's room without a backward look to Darius. If only it was as easy to erase him from her thoughts as it was to look away. Yet she couldn't. In the middle of examining a young boy's broken arm some time later, her hands shook as she thought of how Darius's warm breath had fanned her skin right before he kissed the spot on her neck where it met her shoulder. Less than an hour later, her thoughts suddenly turned away from the chart as she was reading to remember how Darius's large hands had held her so gently and firmly as he rocked his hips into her with such force that she felt his... I'm going to read this again. I know I'm blushing. I'm going to read it without laughing. Darius's large hands had held her so gently and firmly as he rocked his hips into her with such force that she felt his balls slap against her legs. I got nothing. Fuck. What the hell? Her eyes glazed over so that she had to read the chart 4 times before the words soaked in. When Claire dragged her to get something to eat, Sophie thought about Darius's lips, how he kissed as if it was his last kiss, as if his very life depended on it. From slow and sensual to fast and fierce, he kissed her every way imaginable in a short amount of time. And she remembered every one of them. It had been so long since she'd last been kissed that he was seared upon her brain. Every sound, every touch, every smell. It was as much as part of the memory as his kiss. Here's the thing. If it's really been that long, maybe it's because it's been that long that you remember it. They say that, but I'm saying maybe you think it's that good because it's been 7 years since you last had it. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. Sophie had forgotten how good a kiss could be. She hadn't recalled how a kiss could sweep her off her feet, or how it could make her body sizzle and yearn to be touched. She had forgotten the desire, the heart-pounding hunger to quench the growing need a kiss could stimulate. I can relate. I can totally relate to this. Why couldn't Darius be a bad kisser? It would have been much easier had he been as bad as... Sophie halted her thoughts right then. She almost said his name. Quickly, she changed her thoughts. If she were comparing the two of them, then things had progressed to a point that was worrisome. Mind-blowing sex or not, Darius needed to be erased from her life from that moment on. She didn't know why he'd shown up at the hospital after 2 weeks, but she wasn't going to find out. Whatever mad thoughts prompted her to throw caution to the wind and let him take her in the shadows were gone. Sophie was in control of herself once more, the serene, rational Sophie who never had fun or did anything reckless or wild. Maybe you should do something more reckless and wild. Then this wouldn't stand out. Darius could stand naked in the hospital and she wouldn't feel anything. Like hell you wouldn't. You'd definitely feel something. She blew out her breath. Her subconscious was right. She felt something now, but she wouldn't act on it. She couldn't. Let me know how that works out for you, sweetheart. Never again, she murmured. Claire eyed her suspiciously before she went back to her story of the men on an online dating site she signed up for. All the ones who wanted to talk to her were old, extremely unattractive, or just creepy. The few Claire had shown interest in hadn't bothered to even acknowledge her existence. Oh my god, I'm Claire! If anyone needed to be written well, as she put it, it was Claire. If only Sophie knew someone who she could introduce to Claire. Oh, please don't let Claire get manipulated by the bad guy. Don't do that. I like Claire. Sophie hated it when people interfered in her love life, but Claire was different. Claire had been through hell and back with a man who strung her along for 4 years, promising marriage, and then left her for another man. Oh, poor Claire. Oh, God. Claire still believed in love and romance and everything that went with it. She deserved a man who opened doors for her, who called first, who brought her flowers for no reason, and who always had her well-being in mind. She merited a man who couldn't keep his hands off her, a man who only had eyes for her, and a man who pleasured her until she was limp. Doesn't every woman want this? Like, hello? It was ironic that Sophie once craved those very things, but fate had a way of forcing someone to realize how tragic and difficult life could be. But Claire wasn't her. Claire had a chance, and if Sophie could help, she would. Instantly, an image of Darius rose in her mind. She can't even think of her friend. Claire might be her closest friend, but she wasn't about to share Darius. You don't share partners with friends. That's just weird. Darius was a secret Sophie would carry to her grave. One loser after another, Claire said as she scrolled through her matches from the dating site. It's ridiculous who they think I'd want to go out with. Ew, she exclaimed at one individual. Sophie swallowed her bite of sandwich and grimaced when Claire showed her the picture of what Sophie would have sworn was a drunken mugshot. That does it, Claire said with a shake of her head. I'm deleting my profile. I might as well invest in a better vibrator because it looks like that's going to be my bed partner from now on. Sophie opened her mouth to say something, but she clenched her legs together as she recalled Darius. No vibrator or dildo in the world could compare to the real thing after him. End of chapter 3. I think you guys learned entirely too much about me. But chapter's over. We'll be back in 2 days with chapter 4. We'll probably get Darius's perspective because why not? Anyway, have a great night, and I'll see you guys later.